Hey, Algebra kids. This is the last lesson of Chapter 7 that we're going to do, 7.6. After this, there's kind of a review assignment, so there will not be a video for that. But let me know what questions you have on it. So I'm recording this on the day. We just got done with our first Google Meet together, so it's good to see you. It was encouraging to me just to see your faces and touch base with you again as well. So I hope things are going well. Let me know how I can help you. So here we go. What's different with 7.6 is now we're going to have an a value in front. So we're going to have a number in front of the x squared. So the simplicity of what we did in 7.5 is actually gone. So this gets a little bit more complicated. And just watch this for right now, and then we have lots of examples, lots of practice to go through that you can do with me. So lots of problems there. And also leave some notes. So try to keep this under 20 minutes, but we'll see how this goes. So what we're doing is we're factoring this right now, and you can watch me. If you like algebra tiles, you can figure out what that means, but I'm not going to go over that right now. 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. So whenever we have a number in front, what is different is we're going to have to take the 2 and multiply it by the back number. Okay, so I'm going to have to multiply that, and I get a 4, and that's what goes in my ma part. So what multiplies to 4, 2 times 2, that's what got there, and what adds to 5, that's still the same. So that's part of my mul. What multiplies to 4 and adds to 5, the middle one. That's where the 5 came from. So multiplying to 4 and adding to 5, that can be 2 and 2, but 2 and 2 add to 4, they don't add to 5. So it could be 4 and 1. 4 plus 1 is 5. So 4 and 1 of our numbers. Now, do we have another step to do? Okay, so don't just jump to your answer and think it's x plus 4 and x plus 1. Because if you do that, if you double distribute that, you will not get a 2x squared. You would get an x squared, not a 2x squared. So you cannot go to your answers right away. So remember at the beginning, we started with multiplying by 2. We enlarged things by a factor of 2. So these two numbers that we have here, we have to reduce them by a factor of 2. So we're going to divide by the a value. So we start by taking, this is the a. Okay, so we started by taking a times c, and now we have to divide by a. So 4 divided by 2 and 1 divided by 2. So 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 1 divided by 2, keep that as a fraction. If you can reduce it, if it was 2/4, you'd reduce it to a half. But keep that as a fraction. So go over here. I have x plus 2 times x plus 1/2. Again, not our final answer yet. You're going to take this 2 that's on the bottom, any part that's on the bottom, I'm going to move it right to the front of that. So the final answer can be x plus 2 times 2x plus 1. So look at that. See where that 2x plus 1 came in. The 2 came from the bottom, moved it to the front of that. Now it's right there, and the 1 stays at the end. Okay, a lot of math going on behind the scenes. We're not going to touch base right now, but that is your final answer. If you just double distribute that, you take x times 2x plus 1 plus 2 times 2x plus 1, you get 2x squared plus x plus 4x plus 2. So you get 2x squared plus 5x plus 2. You'd get what we started with here. Okay, so that means we did factor it correctly, because when I multiply it out, I get what we started with. So the new steps today are multiplying by the value of a, and then using that for your m. Your a is still the middle one, and then once you get your two numbers, you have to divide by the number of a. Number that a is. If you get a fraction, the bottom number goes to the front. Okay, so 3x squared plus 5x plus 2. I'm going to take 3 times 2. I'm looking for what multiplies to 6 and adds again to 5. So multiplying to 6 adds to 5, 2 and 3, 1 and 6, 2 and 3 is 5. So we're going to use those two. Okay, the 5 came from right there, 2 and 3. So now I take 2, and I have to divide it by the a value, which is 3. So 2 divided by 3 and 3 divided by 3. Well, 2 divided by 3 is 2/3. That's going to stay a fraction. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So we get x plus 2/3 times x plus 1. Don't leave it like this. This bottom number goes to the front. 3x plus 2 times x plus 1. And it stays right there. That'd be it. Okay? So these are kind of the steps. You can pause this. We have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. You want to find two numbers that multiply to whatever a times c equals and add to the value of b. So multiplying to a times c, adding to b. There's your mom. Once you find these two numbers, divide them by the value of a. That's the number that was in front. And reduce all fractions, but leave them as a fraction. Okay. Write your answer as x plus blank and x plus blank. That's what you fill in the blanks with those two answers. The bottom number of any fraction will go to the front of the x in the parentheses. So that was when we had x plus 2/3. That gets written as 3x plus 2. The bottom number of any fraction will go to the front of the x in that parenthesis. Okay, so those are the steps. The rest is just practice, kids. And we also have some equations to solve as well. Now, it seems pretty easy when the numbers are low. When we get some big numbers, it can be get to be overwhelming. Okay. So, a few curveballs. Factor the polynomial. We see a 2 in front. Before you do anything, look for a greatest common factor. Okay, if we can get that front number off, we want to do that. So you notice each of these here are divisible by 2. So I'm going to divide each of these by 2. I get 2 times c squared minus 7c minus 18. So now you just have a 1 in front. You just need to say, okay, what multiplies to negative 18 adds to negative 7. Okay, you are not going to take the 2 times the negative 18 now. That takes you back to this. We want to factor this correctly, and if you don't do this step, it will be wrong. You will not get it correct. Okay, so this 2 is just along for the ride. So it's just going to chill out in front. You basically ignore it for now, and you work with this. So multiplying the negative 18, adding to negative 7, that could be negative 3 and 6. It could be negative 2 and 9. Notice that adds to positive 7, so if we go 2 and negative 9, that adds to negative 7. So 2 and negative 9 multiply to negative 18. Okay, so here, remember, I have a 1, so I do not divide by the 2. I do not do it here, though. These are my two answers, so it's 2 times c plus 2 times c minus 9, written just like that. Okay, so if you do not have a number in front of the c value in this case, you do not divide by the number that you divided by out in front. Hopefully that made sense. Okay, so again here, a 4, an 8, and a 140. 4 goes into each of those. So take a 4 out, I get 4 times a squared. 8 divided by 4 is 2. 140 divided by 4 would be 32. 34. 35. I'll get there. 35. 35. You want me to check? Sure. 35. Okay, so what multiplies to negative 35 and adds to 2? 5 and 7, we want a positive 2, so we're going to go negative 5 and positive 7 for positive 2. So it's 4. Again, I'm just working on the inside. There's a 1 in front of the a squared. A minus 5 times a plus 7. If you're multiplying that out, you'd FOIL, double distribute these two parentheses, and then take that answer times 4. Okay, so see if you can do 3 and 4, and come back, check your answers. Divide by 3. 3 times x squared minus 2x minus 8. So what multiplies to negative 8 and has to add to negative 2? So that would be negative 4 and 2. Negative 4 plus 2 add to negative 2. So 3 times x minus 4 times x plus 2. Divide all by 2. 2, and we have d squared minus 1d minus 30. So it multiplies to negative 30, and what adds to negative 1? That would be, so 30, that's 3 and a 10, a negative 5 and a 6, positive 5 and negative 6. So 2 times d plus 5 times d minus 6. You going okay? Just be patient. The hardest part sometimes is if we don't know our times tables very well, finding the numbers that go here. Okay. So dividing each of those by 5, s squared plus 11s plus 10. What multiplies to 10 and adds to 11 would be 10 and 1. So 5 times s plus 10 times s plus 1. We can take a 3 out. So 3 times q squared plus 10q plus 9. So it multiplies to 9 and adds to 10. It's going to have to be 9 and 1, because 3 and 3 would add to 6. So 3 times q plus 9 times q plus 1. Again, remember, it can be q plus 1 and q times q plus 9. So the parentheses can be switched. Okay. 7. Now you notice we have a 12, a 37, and 28. And there is not a common factor of each of those. And to be honest, we will come back to this. I'll give you some hints for doing this, probably on a bigger sheet. These numbers are going to be pretty big. It's going to be a pretty doozy one to start with. So we're going to jump to number 8. Number 8, we have 6, negative 11, and 4. So it has to be common in all three. There is nothing. They're all relatively prime to each other. Relatively prime. So I'm going to take the 6 times the 4, and I need to find numbers that multiply to 24, and then they add to negative 11. So 6 times 4 is 24. And they have to add to that middle number, negative 11. So since it's adding to a negative, it has to be two negative numbers. So 24, 6 and 4 would be a 10, 2 and 12 would be 14, 8 and 3, a negative 8 and a negative 3, that would add to negative 11. Okay, of course you can try different numbers. You see, these are the two that work. So now, in this case, we had a number in front. Okay, we had to do this step. So whenever you have to do this step, now you have to take these two numbers and divide it by here. So we start with the multiplying, we're going to undo that step, and we're going to divide. So negative 8 over 6, that is negative 4/3. And negative 3 over 6, that is negative 1/2. So these two, the negative 8 came down, divided by 6, got negative 4/3. Negative 3 came down, divided by 6, got negative 1/2. So I have x minus 4/3 times x minus 1/2. Move the bottom part, the denominator, to the front. So 3x minus 4, 2x minus 1. Several of you may have to watch this a couple times to get the hang of it. That is okay. Nice thing about videos, you can stop and go back and watch it. Okay, I'm going to keep going with examples. Go back and watch it, however many times you need. So 9. 9 times 2 is 18. So it multiplies to 18 and then has to add to the 9. Multiplies to 18 and adds to 9. So 18 would be 2 and 9. Well, that's 11. We have 6 and 3. That would add to 9. 6 times 3 is 18. So I'm going to take 6 and divide it by 9. This 9 that's in front here. Not the 9 that's in the middle, the 9 that's in front. That's 2/3. I'm going to take 3 and divide it by 9. That is 1/3. So x plus, because it's a positive 2/3, x plus 2/3 times x plus 1/3. The 3's go to the front. 3x plus 2 times 3x plus 1. You factored it. You double, distribute, FOIL, use the box method with this. You should end up with the 9w squared plus 9w plus 2. And again, yes, those should have been w's. Assignment will count them wrong. All right, keep going. 12 times negative 2, negative 24. Has to add to 5, so it has to multiply to negative. So one has to be positive, one has to be negative. So negative 6 and a 4, negative 2 and a 12. Yes, negative 2, that's 10. Negative 3 and an 8. There's your 5, negative 3 and 8. Okay. So these will be divided by the 12. That has to be divided by 12. That has to be divided by 12. So I get negative 1/4, and I get 2/3 when I reduce those. You can use a calculator there to help you reduce them. So x minus 1/4 times x plus 2/3. Move the denominators to the front. 4x minus 1, 3x plus 2. At least check the first term. 4x times 3x gives us 12. Okay, again, A's. 4a times 3a gives us 12a squared, so we should be okay. And the back one, a negative 1 and 2 gives us a negative 2. Okay. These last two, then I'll go back to number 7. Then we have solving these equations as well. You do have a couple that we have to solve. Those actually aren't too bad once you know this. Okay, 15 times negative 8. We're getting to some bigger ones now. 15 times negative 8. So 15 times negative 8 is negative 120. So multiplies the negative 120 and has to add to 14. Be patient, kids. Be patient. Take your time. So negative 120. It ends in a 0. So I know I could use a 10, a negative 10, and a 12. Negative 10 and 12, they add 2. Now remember, if this is adding, multiplying to a negative, one has to be negative, one has to be positive. The difference between the numbers has to be 14. So I need numbers farther apart, because those are only 2 apart. So let's try 6. And if you have a hard time, just start figuring out numbers. You're like, okay, 9. Does 9 go into it? So do 120 divided by 9. See if that goes into it. Not evenly. Okay, so 120 divided by 8. Try that. 15. 8, 15. So if we do negative 8 and 15, that adds to 7. Okay, remember, one of them has to be negative. 7. You think 7 goes into 120? No, not evenly. 120 over 7. Not even at all. Okay, 6. 120 divided by 6. 6 is 20. So if I do negative 6 and a 20, negative 6 plus 20, that is our 14 that we need. So it's kind of just guessing and checking, figuring out some numbers. Okay, so negative 6 and 20, we had a number in front, so I need to take negative 6 over 15, reduce it. 3 goes into both of those, that'd be negative 2/5. And then I have to take 20 over 15, and that would be 4/3, dividing those by 5. So x minus 2/5 times x plus 4/3. Move the denominators up, so 5x minus 2 times the quantity 3x plus 4. Okay. Now, if this was an equals, solve, equals 0, you have your answers right here, kids. Okay, x minus 2/5, so it's 2/5 and negative 4/3. That'd be where it equals 0 if they want you to solve it. Okay, 5 times negative 9, negative 45. So what is multiplying to negative 45, and what is adding to 12? So negative 45, that ends in a 5. So negative 5 and 9. Negative 5 plus 9 is 4. That is not the right number. Now, if you have a hard time knowing what other numbers go into it, you can also look at these factors to figure out options for going into that. So since 9 is 3's, we know that 3 has to go in 45. Since 9 goes into 45 and 3 goes into 9, 3 has to go into 45. So negative 3 and 15 would be positive 12. So divide those by 5. So negative 3 over 5 is negative 3/5. And 15 over 5 is 3. Hey, a normal number again. So this would factor into x minus 3/5 times x plus 3. So 5x minus 3, move the denominator up. X plus 3, that stays the same. There are your factors. If this was solving, equaling 0, your answers would be negative 3, because you had to minus the 3 over, and positive 3/5, because you had to add the 3/5 over. You get your two answers that way. Okay, number 7. We got some big numbers on there. I'm going to go to this sheet here. 12g squared minus 37g plus 28. Kind of give you some hints on how to break this down. So we got to take 12 times 28. So 12 times 28, 336. How many of you know all the factors of 336? So many things that multiply to 336 and they have to add to negative 37. That does not look like an easy one. So breaking down the multiples of 336. First of all, you can use a factor tree to help you with that. So 336 we know is even, so 2 goes into it. So 336 divided by 2 is 168. No, 168 is even, so we know 2 goes into it. Divide that by 2, we get 84. Again, another even number, so 2 goes into that, that would be 42. 2 goes into that, that'd be 21, and then we have a 3 and a 7. So notice 336 is made up of a 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 7. So any combination of these numbers will be a factor of 336 that we can try. So any combination they are factors to try. Now remember, we're multiplying to a positive number, and we have to add to a negative number. So we need 2 negative numbers. So 336, well, we know 2 and 168. Those don't add to negative 37 if they're negatives. So let's do, I don't know, let's put the 3 and the 7 together. Let's say we have a negative 21. So we need negative 21. So 336 divided by 21. We know 21 will go into it. 16. Negative 21 and negative 16. Does that... Oh, I got lucky the first time. I didn't really plan that. Negative 21, negative 16, that is negative 37. Okay? I actually didn't know which one it was. So you can try other combinations. Like you can say, okay, I'm going to take 2 of the 2's. That's a 4. And then I put everything else together. So 336 divided by 4. You could try 4 and negative 84. So you can use these numbers to help you pick out, okay, what kind of numbers will go into 336. You could take 6 would go into it, okay? 14 would go into it, 7 times 2. 7 times 2 times 2, 28 would go into it, which we knew 28 and 12 go into it. Okay, so negative 21, negative 16, so those, remember, we have a number in front. So that put that over 12, 3 goes into that, that'd be negative 7/4. And then negative 16 divided by 12, 4 goes into those, negative 4/3. So we get G minus 7/4 times G minus 4/3. So we get 4G minus 7 times 3G minus 4. 4G times 3G is 12G squared, that's what we started with. Negative 7 times negative 4 is 28. Okay? So those bigger numbers, do a factor tree. Look at the parts that make up the number, and you can figure out, that will help you break that up. So that was 4G minus 7 times 3G minus 4. If this was an equation they wanted you to solve, your answers would be positive 7/4. 7/4 minus 7/4 is 0. And positive 4/3. 4/3 minus 4/3 is 0. Okay, I'm going to keep going with these examples. There's no word problems, so this video is going to be long enough. I won't even go into those. One thing to do with 13, 14, 15, the rest of these, you see how there's a negative 1 in front. Okay, take the negative out of there. That's going to make it easier. So on these, divide by negative 1 to begin. Or if there's a common factor, divide by a negative common factor. So if you're dividing by negative 1, you're going to get negative 12b squared minus 5b minus 2. And from there, this negative is just going to hang out in front. And you're going to see some of those questions. Okay. Question question 9, question 10 will all be involving this. Okay, question 8, question 9, question 10. So what multiplies to negative 24? What adds to negative 5? It's going to be negative 8 and 3. Divide those by 12. We get x minus 2/3. 8 over 12 is 2/3. 3 over 12 is 1/4. So x plus 1/4. We get negative 3b minus 2 times 4b plus 1. Okay. Divide by negative 1, so I get negative 6x squared. Hey, they're using x's. Minus x minus 15. So what multiplies 6 times negative 15? That'd be negative 90, and it has to add to negative 1. So 1 away, that would be 9 and 10. Negative 10 and 9. Negative 10 and 9. So divide those by 6. So negative x, 10 over 6, divided by 2, that'd be 5/3. 9 over 6 would be 3/2. So negative 3x minus 5 times 2x plus 3. Ooh, a 60. Yippee-yi-yay-ki-yay. So a negative, take it out, 60g squared plus 11g minus 1. So we need to multiply to negative 60 still, because of minus 1, and we need to add to 11. Add to 11. Multiply to negative 60, add to 11. 60 is 6 and 10. Negative 6 and 10, that adds to 4. So what else goes into 60? Well, what goes into 6 or 10? 6 is a 2 and a 3, so 3 goes into it. That'd be negative 3 and 20, that'd be 17. No. 10 is 2 and 5. Should we try 2 and 5? 5. 60 divided by 5, so negative 5 and 12. That's 7. What about 4? 4 would go into it. Negative 4 and 15. That would add to 11. Negative 4 and 15. So divide those by, divide those by 60. Okay, so 4 over 60, 4 goes into 60 15 times, so that'd be negative 1/15. 15 goes into 4, 15 goes into 64 times, so that'd be 1/4. So we get negative 15x minus 1, 15g minus 1, times 4g plus 1. That's a doozy. Oh. I don't think you'll have any that big. There's an 18, there's a 22. Yeah, number 10. Be patient with number 10. Take your time. A few bigger numbers. Okay, again, a negative in front. So negative 2d squared plus d minus 6. So it multiplies to negative 12, adds to 1. Well, that has to be negative 4 and 3. Oh, that'd be negative 1. So 4 and negative 3. 4 and negative 3, divide those by 2. So we get d, 4 divided by 2 is 2, d plus 2. Negative 3 divided by 2 would be 2d minus 3. Denominator goes in front. 2 more. Negative 3r squared plus 4r plus 1. So what multiplies to 3 and adds to 4? That'd be 3 and 1. Divide those by 3, each of those by 3, so we get 1 and 1/3. So negative x plus 1 times 3x plus 1. Okay, negative 8x squared minus 14x plus 5. Doing okay? What multiplies? 8 times 5 is 40, and has to add to negative 14. Oh, I know. Not 8 and 5, it's negative 4 and negative 10. negative 4, and negative 10. Divide those by 8. So we get negative 1/2, 4 over 8, and 10 over 8, 2 goes into that, so 5/4, negative 5/4. We get negative x minus 1/2 times x minus 5/4. That's negative, it's right up here, negative 2x minus 1 times 4x minus 5. Okay. So, let's have some fun. I'll keep going with this. This should take a couple more minutes. You can be done if you want to, but if you know what you're doing. Word problems. Length of a rectangular park, 3x plus 5 miles. The width is 2x plus 8. So 2x plus 8, 3x plus 5, and the area is 360. So I know if I take 2x plus 8 times 3x plus 5, that it should equal 360 miles. You can't solve it right now because remember quadratics or polynomials, things like this have to be equal to 0. So we're going to double distribute. So 2x times 3x plus 5 plus 8 times 3x plus 5 equals 360. So that's 6x squared plus 10x plus 24x plus 40 equals 360. So 6x squared plus 34x plus 40 equals 360. So now minus the 360 over from the 40. So 360 minus from the 40. That'd be negative 320. So 6x squared plus 34x minus 320 equals 0. Now we're equaling to 0. Okay? So now we solve. As 6, 34, and 320, this 2 goes into those at least. So with an equation, the nice thing is you can divide both sides by 2, and then you can just get rid of the 2. You can divide by a constant. So 3x squared plus 17x minus 160 equals 0. So now, what multiplies to 3 times 160? What multiplies to negative 480 and adds to 17? Okay, how fast can I get this figured out? 480 adds to 17. So positive and negative, so 480 divided by, okay, well, there's a 48, so 6 works. Negative 6 and 80. That will not work. I need to go bigger. So what about 40? 40 goes into 80. 40 and 12. So a negative 12 and 40. That'd be 28. We're getting closer. So that means these numbers need to get closer to each other. So a little bit smaller number. What about 24? 48. 24 goes into 48. 24 and 20. Okay, well, those are only 4 apart, so we need something between 12 and 20 to try. 14, 15, 15. Let's try 15. 15 and 32. That's 17 apart. That is 17 apart. 15 and 32. We found it. So I'm going to divide that by the number in front, which is 3. And I get negative 5 and 32 thirds. So I get x minus 5 and x plus 32 thirds equals 0. Now remember, we're solving this. So our answers right now would be a positive 5 and a negative 32 thirds, but the question is, what are the dimensions of the park? Dimensions can't be negative. So we're going to throw this one out, and we're just going to say, okay, x equals 5. Those are not the dimensions of the park, though. Come back up here. It'd be 20 miles. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 5 is 20, and 18. So it's 20 by 18 miles. Okay. Sum of two numbers is 8. The sum of their squares, the two numbers, is 34. Guess and check with this. So x plus y equals 8. Two numbers add up to 8. The sum of their squares. So if you square them, x squared plus y squared, we get 34. There's a formula. We could work this out the real way, but let's just find two numbers that add to 8. So like if I do 4 and 4, 4 plus 4 is 8. 4 squared plus 4 squared, does that equal 34? Well, that'd be 16 and 16, that equals 32. No. Let's go on one either side. What about 3 and 5? What's 3 squared plus 5 squared? So that's 9 plus 25. Hey, that's 34. So 3 and 5. Guess and check. That always works, sometimes. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. I can understand this one's going to probably have some questions. That's okay. We'll need some more practice. The hardest part sometimes is finding the numbers that multiply and add. Use your calculators to help you. Divide things out. See what you can find. Good luck. Let me know how I can help. Stay Bluebird strong. Stay active. We'll see you later.